Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to get going. Ms. Paquette is getting the sign-up sheet. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. 6 p.m. Okay. Thank you for all for joining us this evening. My name is Chris Pia. This is the public forum for Monday, March 13th, 2023. I'm going to call it to order at 6 p.m. For those of you who have not joined us on an event like this, if you've signed up to speak, thank you. When I call your name, please come to the microphone. Please speak clearly, if I could, into the microphone, and just state your name and your address for the record, please. And just remember, this public forum is limited to Stratford residents and Stratford taxpayers only. I'm going to give everyone 3 minutes. I ask that you keep to it. We have a large list tonight, out of courtesy for everyone else. And when the buzzer goes off that Ms. Paquette has, your time will have been expired. So thank you very much. First person signed up tonight I have is Linda Palermo.
Thank you, Linda Palermo, 46 Vault Place, Stratford. I am here to speak on the issue where somebody would like to do away with our rights to be able to speak out on, I'm sorry, I'm having a blank. And I just want to remind people that in 1991, the initiative came by and they put a cap on what it is they're able to do. I understand there are some people that would like to be able to expand so that they can change some of the rules. I will say this, I worked vehemently with the initiative group and I pushed as much as I could. I did a lot of notarizing for Diane. And as I stand here today, I will not support changing anything that we put down and have had in order all these years. It's great that people would love to be able to run for certain things. They're doing a fantastic job. But I think to take it away, just so that they could continue to have or be elected to the post for the Board of Ed, is very wrong. We all have rights, and I will vehemently go out and campaign if I have to, so that they do not change what was intended in the initiative. So I'm saying that tonight, and I mean it. And I don't want to see any changes. I want us to be able to live as comfortably as we can without having people say, well, you wanted to change it, so we're going to change it. Do not change it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next person signed up I have is Cora Barber. I said it correct, right?
Hi. Yep, I'm Cora Barber, 4 Hickey Street. I'm speaking for myself and my neighbors from Hickey Street. We're asking the town to review the Zoning Appeals Board conduct from the January 3rd meeting and March 7th decision related to a zoning variance at Lot 3B on Hickey Street. The developer for this applicant prevented his client's application for a zoning waiver, and we presented our opposition. The board did not discuss any hardship of this applicant. Our many concerns were dismissed. We still do not understand why this variance was allowed. Zoning laws are created and adhered to, so living and working in any zone is tolerable to all. At the zoning appeals meeting on January 3rd, we presented our opposition because a 2-family home will increase street congestion and decrease accessibility of emergency vehicles. Hickey Street is an old, abnormally narrow, dead-end street, bottlenecking at the middle of the street at about 20 feet wide. We presented photos to the appeals board of the current street congestion that occurs during a holiday when residents have family and friends over. It is almost impossible for a regular car to pass when residents to pass through when cars are parked on both sides of the street. With the addition of more people and greater on-street parking, how will a truck or EMS be able to pass through during an emergency? The zoning appeals commissioner told us the commission cannot consider street congestion when making a decision. We do not believe this is true. According to Connecticut state statute on zoning regulations, Section 8-23 states, such zoning regulations shall be designed to lessen congestion in the streets, to secure safety from fire, panic, flood, and other dangers, to promote health and the general welfare, to provide adequate light and air, to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, and to facilitate the adequate provision for transportation. Stratford should adhere to the state statute to lessen street congestion, prevent overcrowding of land, and promote the welfare of its residents. This neighborhood is constantly inundated with noise and air pollution from the surrounding industries and the extremely close proximity to I-95. Does Stratford want to overcrowd a neighborhood that is already struggling to maintain a decent quality of life? If Stratford will not adhere to this state statute by blocking the zoning variance on Hickey Street at Lot 3B, can this town at least widen Hickey Street to a width that is equal to all other streets off of Surf Avenue? That way, God forbid, if myself or my neighbor is in need of an emergency assistance, we will not die because cars on the street are blocking an emergency truck. Thank you, and I have copies of photos and all of the letters we wrote and presented at the zoning appeals meeting.
Thank you, Paul. Next person I have signed up is Chris Green. Chris?
Good evening, councilors. Chris Green, 550 Housatonic Avenue, Stratford. I want our schools to thrive, and there are two things that the council can do to help make that happen. One, support an ordinance amendment to increase the term limit for the Board of Education from 1 to 2 terms, and fully fund this year's proposed Board of Education budget. On term limits, despite what mailers funded by out-of-town, out-of-touch, and unnamed individuals may insinuate, this is not a move to repeal term limits. This is a request to relax them to a more reasonable window in line with offices across the rest of the state. Out of 169 municipalities, Stratford is one of only a handful with any term limit restrictions on its Board of Ed. It is the only town in the state that restricts it to a single term. And I agree with those who've already been publicly speaking out on this, highlighting that this current issue has weakened our board's ability to retain institutional knowledge and the coherent leadership needed to steer the district to long-term success. Since enacting these disruptive restrictions, our schools have sunk into the Alliance designation, marking them among the lowest performing in the state. Give our qualified, passionate community leaders the opportunity to work towards lasting positive change by giving them the opportunity, if they want to run again and let the voters decide. Turning to our budget, education must be a priority. The quality of our schools is a driver behind our property values, our community, and our economy. They should not be receiving year after year, regardless of the actual needs carefully conveyed through the Board of Education budget request, fractional increases, well below the pace of inflation, below the pace of the contractual obligations of the board, and basically below the pace of every other department in the town. Despite all these difficulties, the 3.9% increase that the board asked for this year was a historically low ask and the lowest in the area. Trumbull asked for 5%, Shelton asked for 7%, Bridgeport is asking for almost 10%. Education should be the last thing we cut, not the first. The budget hearings also should be at a time when our parents and educators can actually be there, not, as in most years past, during a scheduled school break. This year, the historical scheduling oversight should be corrected, as should the pattern disconnect between the lip service offered in these chambers regarding the importance of education and the clear deprioritization of school funding relative to the other town departments over the last few years. I urge this council to listen to the needs of our students and educators and take concrete steps to give our schools the resources needed to start to build in the right direction. Thank you for your time.
Next person signed up is Greg Riley.
Good evening, Town Council. Greg Riley, 152 Oakland Place. This is not about repealing term limits. This is about improving the governance of Stratford Public Schools by the Board of Education. I support changing the limit on the Board of Ed membership so they can run for re-election and have consecutive terms. keep terms limited, and let them have a second consecutive term. From my very first days covering the town for the Stratford Star 10 years ago, right up to today, I have heard from current and past members of the Board of Education of both political parties that one term is not the best way to serve the schools. Stratford Public Schools would be better served by members who have gained lots of information and experience. We have all heard that it takes years to really get up to speed on finances, curriculum, and the legalities of overseeing a school system. It is a shame to be forced to lose that knowledge after 4 years. Giving the voters the power to remove or re-elect Board of Ed members would put the power back with the residents, and it would take some of the power away from the staff superintendent who reports to the Board of Ed. Allowing a second consecutive term for Board of Ed officials would mean they are not lame ducks as soon as they begin to serve. Allowing Board of Ed members to run for a second term would result in a higher quality governance of Stratford Public Schools. Thank you.
Next person signed up is Janice Kapi.
Good evening, council members. My name is Janice Cupie, 1460 Elm Street. I am here to speak on 2 items tonight. Firstly, I'm here to put on the record that my position with regards to the BOE term limit in no way includes eliminating term limits for the BOE or any other body. I do strongly believe that based on the nature of the work that the Board of Education is tasked with, it should at a minimum have 2 4-year terms. As a governing body, the single 4-year term causes the board to lose valuable institutional knowledge, experience, and relationships that could help guide the decision-making process and the development of strategic long-term solutions to achieve educational excellence for our students. The second item I would like to speak about is the BOE budget. On March 1st, the Board of Education put forward its proposed 2023-24 budget with a 3.9% increase. Over the last decade plus, there have been a lack of investment in the Stratford Public Schools. Our students, families, and community members watch the slow gutting and defunding of what used to be a great school system, with the constant cutting of staff and programs due to a lack of adequate funding. The negative implications of those actions could only stay hidden for so long, and recently, the state identified Stratford Public Schools as an alliance district. With that designation comes some incremental funding to help improve specific areas. These funds cannot and should not be used to supplant the operational budget and should not be considered as part of any increase that the board requests from the town. By not fully funding the 3.9% request, or by including the Alliance grant as part of your increase to the BOE, you are preventing progress, and the town of Stratford will continue to fail in meeting its obligations to the residents of providing a free and appropriate education for all its children. Please stop viewing our children as an expense. Properly funding our schools should be seen as an investment in our children and the future of our town. Thank you.
Next person signed up is, I believe it's, is it Sigrid Rogowski? Do I have a Sigrid? Going once. On Jesse Ave, no? Okay, I'm gonna move on. Next person on the list, I believe is Jason Ruiz. Is it Ruiz? My apologies, sir.
Thank you, council members, for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jason. I'm a resident of Stratford, a tenant and a factory worker in the state of Connecticut. Last year, I spoke with you in favor of implementing a fair rent commission in Stratford.
Jason, if you could just state your address too for the record.
Sorry,
That's okay.
1714 Nichols Avenue. Last year, I spoke with you in favor of implementing a fair rent commission in Stratford. I'd like to thank you for your decision to add the fair rent commission ordinance mandated by the state in 2021's legislative session to the agenda tonight. I won't waste your time or mince words. Tenants are struggling. Renters around the state are paying on average higher increases up to 20 and 30% on their rental bills this year. Renters in Stratford pay on average more than $2,000 for their units. That's more than 50% of renters in Stratford. No cause and lapse of time evictions have skyrocketed across the state since the end of the eviction moratorium and showed no signs of slowing down to the already too high pre-pandemic levels. Renters in Connecticut clean your bathrooms, teach your kids, manufacture machine parts, and are raising their children in what should be long-term homes, not investment opportunities for out-of-state mega landlords. If we expect the next generation to choose Stratford as their home, it needs to become affordable for the average renter, who are workers who have not seen wage increases in the 20 or 30%. So why are their rents going up 20, 30, 40%? We all know that this is price gouging and that it's unsustainable for our economy. I would encourage members of the council to consider amendments to this ordinance that would strengthen it. I believe that you can add protections such as for tenant unions. Tenants are organizing unions in their buildings to fight back against poor conditions and against rent hikes, and for stronger protections against retaliation from landlords attempting to use rent hikes as evictions. Hamden, a town neighboring New Haven, which is similar in diversity in terms of housing stock from more dispersed suburbs to an urban core, passed a similar resolution last year unanimously with Republican support because they knew that the future of Connecticut's tenants and working class relies on a fair chance at an affordable life for renters. I really encourage you to consider amendments. I'm happy to send the Hamden ordinance to the council if anybody's interested. I really believe that this is a really great opportunity for us to show some unity here and pass an ordinance that is fair for all residents in Stratford. And I will yield my time to questions if you do that.
No questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Next person signed up on the list is Lou DeCilio.
Lou DeCilio, 65 Ferry Court. Good evening, councilwomen, councilmen, and to everyone in the attendance this evening. I'm here to discuss the agenda item regarding term limits. I want to give you a little history of the referendum in Stratford. In March 1991, term limits were voted in with a 64% voting in favor, 36% opposed. 11,620 people voted. June 1995, an attempt to up the terms to 2 4-year terms failed. Only 8% turnout when a minimum of 15% of the registered vote is required for any referendum to be enacted. November 1996, another attempt to up the terms to 2 4-year terms failed, 67% opposed, 33% in favor. This time, 13,750 people voted. November 2004, yet another attempt to up the terms to 2 4-year terms failed, 55% opposed and 45% in favor. 12,350 people voted. In this same year, there was another question on the ballot providing a provision that allows for an individual who has already served the maximum number of terms under the ordinance from the first referendum that established term limits to seek re-election after a break from that same office for at least one term. This question passed, 52% in favor and 48% opposed. 11,468 people voted. There were 3 attempts to change the initial term limit referendum. All failed miserably. That brings us to the letter from the Board of Education to the Town Council. I was actually stunned by the pompous tone of the members that signed. Many past boards of education were successful and effective in one term. What the letter basically says to me is the 3 people who signed are slow learners and now need more time so they can maybe become effective. Tens of thousands of Stratford residents overwhelmingly voted for term limits and on numerous occasions shot down attempts to change the language. Now 3 members whose names appear on the letter want the Town Council to override the results of those referendums just because they say you should. The arrogance is astonishing. Just because you have the authority to do it doesn't mean you should. I look forward to the lively discussion and why the Democrats want to change term limits. Thank you.
The next person I have signed up, and please correct me. I have Christine. Is it Desaru? I apologize. No, it's okay. Please correct me.
It's Deriso.
Deriso. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine DeRiso. I live at 55 Early Ave in Stratford. And my concern is with the elementary school. So my son will be attending kindergarten in September. And we live on the south side of Stratford, if that's what it's still labeled. And we only have one elementary school, which is Johnson, which the side behind me has 6. So I recently been trying to get a waiver because I know Johnson is completely crowded, and unfortunately, the first waiver got denied. I went to Center, which is closed. So when I was in elementary school, you had Center, you had Honey Spot, and Johnson. So Center's gone, Honey Spot. So I just don't understand how all the kids on that side of town is supposed to attend that one school. Even Lordship is still not in our district. So I'm just trying to figure out at what point are we going to put our children first and spread it out, because everyone that I do know whose, children attend Johnson, they're not giving them homework, they're not giving them the attention because the classroom sizes are so large. Like I mentioned before, if you, on the north end of, like how I said it's kind of labeled, there are 6 elementary schools back there. So at what point does this side get a little bit more attention? I know people over there that get homework, but we don't get homework over here. So I just think that as the board, we need to figure out how to get all the kids to get the attention that they need in order to be successful. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person I have signed up is Sonia Devitt. Sonia?
Sonia Devitt, 545 Hilltop Drive in Stratford. And I'm here basically because I received this flyer in the mail. Alert, Stratford politicians are scheming to repeal term limits. I object to that kind of literature. I don't care who drew it up. I don't care whether it was Democrats, Republicans. In fact, I turned it over to see who sent it out, and it's some outfit, U.S. term limits from Florida. Florida. Now, I realize it may be a national office for some organization, but are we actually letting them put this kind of nasty wording on our flyers that go out to our people here in Stratford? We can be nicer than that, we can be more civilized, and we can be more decent. An issue is an issue, and fair discussion is fair discussion. But this kind of literature demeans the community, and it demeans all of you who are serving time, as some of you could qualify as career politicians for the length of time you've had offices, but it's not a nasty word. It's service to the community, which we appreciate. And the second thing I'd like to say is to the issue of term limits. Having served on a number of boards and commissions, I know that it takes a learning curve to get up to speed. The more important the board, the more involved the regulations that you'll have to deal with, the longer it takes. I suggest, before this is voted on, that you survey present and past board members individually and see what they have found is their experience on the board. And if they need more time, maybe we should adjust the term limits. Nobody is scheming to get rid of term limits that I know of. People are interested in having terms that are meaningful and where they can do a meaningful job. And if that takes 6 years instead of 4 years, or 5 years instead of 4 years, why wouldn't we consider it? So, and the last is, I want to just say regarding fair rent commissions. I have been a professional in the field of fair rent. I was for 12 years the administrator of fair rent for the city of Norwalk. And my experience is very positive in terms of the benefit to all of the town, both landlords and tenants. If you have a carefully drawn, excellent ordinance, and that's important, if it's balanced and fair, it can be a wonderful benefit for the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. Next person I have, is it Karen? Karen Tracy? Oh, I'm sorry. Karen Tracy.
Karen Tracy, 271 Castle Drive. I want to thank the council for their time tonight and speak in favor of increasing the Board of Ed term limit from 1 to 2 terms. I also want to discuss transparency, an issue brought to our attention by a barrage of mailers that, ironically, offers no clues about how a national PAC wound up caring enough to spend thousands of dollars to send 2 sensational and inaccurate mailers targeting this incredibly local issue. These mailers pretend to care about transparency of our processes. They are calling for our citizens to oppose what they falsely portray as a secretive repeal of term limits. This is a movement for an adjustment of term limits that has been publicly commented on in town meetings, in the press, and on social media for the last several weeks. Similar movements and comments in favor of this change are also on record and stretch back years. Even our mayor publicly questioned the value of these limits when she was appointed to the Board of Education in 2004. I have yet to see anyone come locally out publicly in opposition to this move from 1 to 2 terms since it has been raised most recently, except for some speakers here tonight. With the sensational disinformation in the mailers, maybe that will change. Anyone who's here today in anger about term limits being relaxed, I would remind them that we now have the strictest term limits in the entire state. Even with this move, our Board of Education would still have some of the strictest term limits in Connecticut. Even the president can run for 2 4-year terms. I welcome those concerned about term limits to consider that our governor, legislatures in the state and the federal level, our mayor, and our registrars all are currently elected in positions that lack any term limits at all, and our energies are perhaps better directed in criticisms there. This disproportionate response of sending 2 mailers across the town, spending thousands to object to a grassroots attempt to improve things for our town and children is incredibly unfortunate. If anyone locally had anything to do with instigating such a disingenuous campaign, it is no wonder they have done so anonymously. I hope our counselors can ignore the ridiculousness and come together to make the right choice for Stratford by sending this BOE term limit adjustment to 2 terms to the Ordinance Committee for consideration. Thank you.
Next person I have is it Laurel Purcell? Last name Purcell. Going once. Going twice on Springview Avenue. No? Somebody signed it, so. Okay. Anybody here who has not signed up who would like the opportunity, I'll give one last chance. If you'd like, just come up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Kathleen Callahan, 271 Castle Drive. I didn't expect to speak tonight. I am stunned by the dismissive, offensive, arrogant, and actually obnoxious behavior by the leader of a political party in town. It is 2023, in case he hasn't turned his calendar recently. He likes to forget the nonpartisan support for this extension. History guides, but those in my party are not held hostage to it. It tends to hold certain people down. That was embarrassing. Truly, truly embarrassing.
Anybody else who'd like to speak who hasn't had the opportunity? Just want to make sure everyone has granted it. No? Okay. Excellent. We're going to close the public forum at 6:28 p.m. We will reconvene promptly at 7 p.m. on the nose right here. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We're going to get going. My name is Chris Pia. I'm calling the regularly scheduled Stratford Town Council meeting to order on Monday, March 13, 2023 at 7 p.m. The first item on the agenda is going to be the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I will ask Councilman Can, please.
First, a blessing to everyone who serves our town in any capacity. May they continue to endeavor with integrity and conscientious foresight. A good example of this is Joe Crudo, who as a private citizen, volunteering, and as an elected official gave his heart and soul to the town of Stratford. May he rest in peace. Our term on this planet is limited. Give us the strength and empathy to do no harm. Practice life with the highest moral competency and participate in our community with the most diligence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. To give the respect where it's due, Mr. Cannon, thank you for that. Said some kind words. The town lost a really good man in Joe Crudo. Whether you know him through baseball or anything, he served this town in too many volunteer capacities to write down. So I would just ask that we do a moment of silence for Mr. Crudo and his family. Thank you all. Okay, we'll get going. The first item on the agenda is going to be the approval of the regular scheduled minutes, the regular scheduled meeting from February 14th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion to approve. So Mr. O'Brien, do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Dancho. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is under Section 3. We have notification of resignation by Victoria Flork from the Stratford Library Board. Next item is going to be the mayor's report. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Council Chair. Good evening, everyone. You're in receipt of the 2024 fiscal proposed budget. You should have received it on Friday. This budget funds town operations and all the services that our departments provide to our great community on a daily basis, and it also includes long-term planning for Stratford's future. It addresses the financial responsibilities of the town and takes into account the rising costs of insurance, employee wages, debt service, energy, fuel, water, and benefits. When I first ran for mayor, there was an incredible need for tax relief among our residents. I've taken this obligation to our from our taxpayers as a priority, and working with the council members who have approved those budgets, we reduced taxes with every budget for the last 5 years. It is of the utmost importance to my administration that we provide the greatest resources and services that the town of Stratford can afford, and that everything we do is in the best interest of those who live and work in this town. With that said, our administration worked diligently to ensure the first increase in over 5 years was kept to a minimum at 1.88%, and the tax rate at 0.74 increase to the mill rate, which will be 40.2 mills. Overall, the town's grand list rose by 3%, a little over 3%, or $158,814,073. I cannot stress this enough. Given the economic climate that our taxpayers and the entire country is facing now, this budget was built with the #1 priority of being its effect on our hardworking community. My proposed budget addresses financial obligations and inflationary impacts without overburdening the people of Stratford. With much uncertainty regarding the governor's proposed state budget, we worked within our means and proceeded cautiously rather than making any assumptions of what we may receive in the funding from the state. The uncertainty in support from our state, and in our efforts to minimize our operations, the financial effects on our taxpayers, my administration has taken to finding creative and efficient ways to fund both short and long-term projects that will impact the future of our town. My administration continues to find efficiencies across departments and to realize new avenues for how best to serve the town. Outside of our daily operations, we've taken a strategic approach to go after more grants for infrastructure, sustainability, resiliency, flood, and stormwater management, and conservation projects. These projects define our priorities when we look towards the future and the quality of life for those who live in Stratford. They are a shift from our regular daily functions of serving the town to encompass the whole wellness of the town as we move forward. A few highlights of these efforts include receiving $4.1 million in funding from Congresswoman DeLauro's office for the flood protection project at our Stratford Water Pollution Control Facility. We are constantly working to improve our environmental standing and are committed to funding that will help us with those efforts. Most recently awarded was the $1.6 million for the CIF Bruce Brook Fund, the Watershed Project Study, and $2.7 million flood prevention for the Water Pollution Control Facility. Stratford is a beautiful town with wonderful residents and businesses. We will continue to serve the town as best possible on a daily basis, and is our commitment for the future of Stratford. I hope that we will have more insight into the governor's proposed state budget and whether or not Stratford will receive additional funding. While I am hopeful the state's budget funding for the town of Stratford will allow you, the town council, to reduce my proposal, we have to lean into the cautious approach rather than banking on assumptions. For town news, our first snowstorm was Monday, February 27th, through Tuesday afternoon, February 28th. Public Works did a great job. They were busy plowing roads and sanding streets and cleaning out parking lots. And thank you for cleaning out Town Hall parking lot, Renee, so we could come to work. On observances, President's Day was Monday, February 20th. March is Women's History Month. We issued a proclamation, and in 1987, Congress provided bipartisan support to extend the Women's History Week to Women's History Month. The theme of the 2023 is celebrating women who tell our stories, in recognition of women past and present, and those who have been active in all forms of media and storytelling, including print, radio, TV, screen, blogs, podcasts, news, and social media. On March 11th, I issued the COVID Remembrance Proclamation, as it's been 3 years since the pandemic began, and we remember all those, including the 225 Stratford residents who lost their lives due to COVID-19. I remember their families and friends who were affected by their loss. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, and there will be more details later in my report. COVID updates. The health department last scheduled COVID booster clinic is March 22nd, with homebound patients still being scheduled on clinic days. Please call to make an appointment. The department is preparing for the eventual end of the federally declared public health emergency and what it means for Stratford residents in terms of access to the vaccine and test kits. More news to follow. The health department's Know Your Numbers campaign successfully conducted health screenings at Town Hall, the library, South End Community Center, and the YMCA. Needs were high enough at one of the sites that the health department is going back for a follow-up. Blood pressure screenings continue to be offered the first Thursday of every month at the Baldwin Center. And the department is gearing up for the long-awaited transition of implementing the FDA model food code. You'll hear more about that later, too. New forms are being rolled out, along with the changes in the way that food establishments are being inspected. The health department is communicating those changes to all establishments. In community and senior service news, 84 individuals received assistance from UI and Southern Connecticut Gas and the Connecticut Energy Assistance Program to pay for their bills, and they met at the Baldwin Center on February 23rd. Upcoming events, AARP is offering free income tax preparation in person at the Baldwin Center by appointment through mid-April, and the IRS VITA program, the income tax preparation is offered virtually at South End Community Center and by appointment virtually through the beginning of April. Economic development news on the Army engine plant. We continue to schedule meetings with the developer. And now we're starting with individual departments. So the first phase of the project, abatement and demolition, will go smoothly. The conveyance is still projected for early April, fingers crossed. Complete Streets Phase 1, the RFP for the streetscape improvements for Phase 1 will close on March 23rd. It's on the town website if you'd like to get further information. The Plan of Conservation and Development, all the stakeholder meetings have been completed. The plan is now drafted, and the plan is now being drafted, and the first draft of the POCD is on schedule to be available by May. For additional information, please visit www.planstratford.com. According to the personal property grand list, 177 new business opened in Stratford in 2021 and 197 in 2022. The grand list runs from October 1st through September 30th of each year. We have some new businesses in Stratford: Fairfield County Exteriors and the Oysterman's Daughter Retail Shop, which is Cops Island Oyster Shack, which is at Bonstock. We've had several property conveyances, commercial property conveyances. 435 Honey Spot Road, formerly Primerica, sold for $300,000. 2160 Stratford Avenue, sold for $185,000. And 1325 Barnum Avenue, number 2, sold for $2.7 million. Recent events, we have some upcoming ribbon cuttings. Bagel Boutique, the Old Danny's is March 14th at 10. That would be tomorrow. Jolly Chicken, a new little pub venture, is located at 2590 Broadbridge Avenue. It used to be a Chinese restaurant, Greenfield and Broadbridge. And that is going to be on the 21st of March at 3 p.m. And the Cutting Wedge, which is at Writer's Landing, the ribbon cutting will be April 13th. And I don't have a time, my apologies. Public Works bulk pickup program will be available from April 3rd to September 21st. Some upcoming town events. St. Patrick's Day celebration is Friday morning. The St. Patrick's Day festivities at Town Hall will begin with the raising of the Irish flag and the ceremony on the green, and that starts at 9 a.m. Senator Kevin Kelly will be the master of ceremonies, and the ceremonies will include performances from the Stratford High Band, at least one bagpiper, we're hoping on a couple, and a performance from Brennan Lucy Irish Dance Academy. This year's Irish Mares for the Day are the owners of Lordship Market, Carrie Rooney and Maura Baird. And hopefully if you'll stop by their post of gold, I don't know if that was supposed to be pot of gold, at their market sometime to wish them well and the best of luck. Restaurant Week will be starting on Sunday, the March 19th through the 25th of March. Currently, we have 24 restaurants participating, and if you'd like more information to see who is actually participating, go to stratfordrestaurantweek.com. We have some staff news. We have a new deputy fire marshal. His name is Anthony Fino. He was sworn in a week ago. He has 21 years with the city of Milford. EMS Director Mike Louise has been appointed by the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians as the Advocacy Coordinator for Connecticut. This appointment helps members from Connecticut build and support NAEMT's national advocacy efforts, encourage members to participate in these efforts, update members in Connecticut of pending national legislation and regulation, and build relationships with state EMS officers and the state EMS associations. And lastly, Chairman, as you have in your pony, I'd like you to approve the appointment of Greg Burns from the Short Beach Park Commission. That's my report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Open it up to questions for the mayor for the council. If anybody has a question. Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor Hoydick, the town is engaged in a potential settlement with a commercial developer. Many aspects were touched upon in a Connecticut Post article 6 weeks ago or so. It includes a $1.4 million buyout settlement, if you will. Can you please speak to why the town is pursuing this settlement?
On advice of council, may I speak to this matter?
Executive session. Yeah, Madam Mayor, as this is pending litigation, I'd request that you not do this in a public, but rather only in executive session, should the council feel appropriate.
Thank you, Council. And Councilor, you know, as we have discussed this in executive session, why I can't go into more details of this.
Second question, please.
Absolutely.
Okay. To better understand economic development and its impact on our commercial grand list, it's been asked before to get a report of those new businesses that came into town and what their incremental value is from a property tax perspective, and as an offset, on a net basis, if you will, other businesses that have left, to help the council understand our success in increasing the commercial grand list.
Council will be happy to provide that report, and Council Clerk, if you could make a note to let the Director of Economic and Community Development bring that information to the workshop, the budget workshop that's scheduled.
Any other questions, Greg? Nope. Any other questions for any other councilors for the mayor? Nope. Ms. Rice, do you have a question?
Just talked about Bruce Brook. Just wondering if you know, is there a timeline for when the permits will be available to start the work for the Bruce Brook, or 1.6 million, and when the funds will be released? Do you have any timeline for when the funds from the DECCCD will be released and available to start that work?
Counselor, I think the funds came through the Community Investment Fund. We have contracted, I believe, or getting proposals for the plan. So the project won't be executed until the engineering firm is hired and the plan is approved by all of you to move forward.
I was actually just, you know what, I'm going to stop right there. I was just wondering about the timeline, because we got the update in our packets that we were in the permitting process, and just looking to see if you had any idea about when those permits would be available. Just looking for timeline, if you have a timeline.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Again, Council Clerk, if you would touch base with the town engineer, John Casey, and ask him for a timeline and respond to Councilwoman Rice. Thank you.
Any other questions for the mayor? Oh, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 4.3, Town Attorney's Report. Mr. Hodgson.
Thank you, Chair. The report for February is that the Town Attorney's Office settled 3 property damage claims for a total of $15,000 approximately, but also recovered approximately $15,000 in payments to the town, balancing out. We opened 4 litigation files, including 2 zoning enforcement injunctions. We recovered $9,000 approximately on 3 blight liens, and we received 10 FOI requests. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next section under ordinances and resolutions, item 6.1.1. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Dancho.
Motion to approve item 6.1.1, an ordinance establishing a beautification commission as Chapter 5, Article XX, Section 5-110, Section 5-112 of the Town Code of the Town of Stratford, and that the first reading of the above entitled ordinance be and is hereby dispensed with, as copies thereof have been previously furnished to each member of the Town Council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referred to the Ordinance Committee for a public hearing.
Motion by Councilman Dancho.
Mr. Chairman, I would request this not be referred for a public hearing. That's not necessary. It should just be
Ms.
the
Dancho,
ordinance.
if you can per advice of council. Mr. Leclerc, if you could just refer to ordinance.
Resolution should be as written with the exclusion of the last 4 words for a public hearing.
Is that because there's a public hearing anyway and it's redundant?
We don't need it for this purpose.
Okay.
Okay, I amend my motion to state that the same be adopted as a first reading.
And referred to the Ordinance Committee.
And referred to the Ordinance Committee.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Shake. Actually, I'm sorry. Mr. O'Brien did second. I'm sorry, he had called before. You're right, thank you. Discussion on this. Again, we're just sending this ordinance tonight. Okay. Mr. Can.
Thank you, Chris. What's the difference, so I don't have to say wait 30 days or to the ordinance meeting, what's the difference between this commission and the current beautification committee that we have today?
If you don't mind.
Madam Mayor, I'll answer that question.
Through the chair, it's a committee of the council, actually, a subcommittee of the council. So this would make it a commission of its own right.
And Greg, just to add to that point, this was actually a request from that body themselves. It's a close-knit group. They've been working together for many years, a lot of them, and they do great work around town. And they had actually reached out to this body a number of months ago, and the town attorney's been working on this, but this was actually at their request.
Mr. Can, it codifies formally what is somewhat of an informal group right now with specific duties, membership, terms of office.
And are those aspects of the ordinance consistent with the current committee? For example, how they're appointed,
Well, that's why we're sending it to ordinance to talk it over.
For ordinance, can we get a,
We can get everything as it's written now and then what we're proposing.
thank you.
Sure. Any other discussion on this one? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 6.1.2. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Dancho.
I motion to approve item 6.1.2, an ordinance amending Chapter 55 of the Town Code of the Town of Stratford, nail salons, and that the first reading of this ordinance be and is hereby dispensed with, as copies thereof have been previously furnished to each member of the Town Council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referred to the Ordinance Committee.
Okay. Motion's been made by Councilwoman Dancho. I have a second by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion on this? Again, this was a request from the Health Department some months back. There's been a lot of due diligence through Andrea and her department on getting this here, and thank you for that from the whole department. We're going to talk about this in detail in greater depth in ordinance, but again, this is the first step procedurally to move it there. Okay. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 6.1.3.
Mr. Chair.
I have Ms. Sutton.
I'd like to move item 6.1.3, an ordinance establishing fair rent commission, that the first reading of the above titled ordinance be and is hereby dispensed with as copies thereof and have been previously furnished to each of the member of Town Council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referred to the Ordinance Committee for a public hearing.
No public hearings necessary, Mr. Chairman.
Nope.
The movement could delete.
Right, just moving it to ordinance. There's no public hearing.
Thank you.
You want to just correct that?
Yes, that the first reading of the above entitled ordinance be and hereby dispensed with the copies therefore of and have been previously furnished to each member of the Town Council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referred to the Ordinance Committee.
Okay. Motion by Councilwoman Sutton. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. O'Brien. Okay. Discussion. So
Mr.
again,
Chairman.
Ms. Shake, go ahead.
Thank you.
Let me just preface real quick, that again, so everyone knows this, we have to move this forward per state legislative law, and that's what the purpose of tonight is. Ms. Shake, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the town attorneys. Why in this particular case would we not be required, or is it to this body's decision to have a public hearing at ordinance? I'm just asking because
It's not required under the charter for the ordinance. That's why it's not necessary.
But can
But
we
members-
have,
So, Caitlin, it's a procedural, just like any other ordinance. Just right now, being that it's not bonding, and Mr. Town Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, anytime we bond funds or pass a budget, we have to have the public hearing, being that this is no different outside the body of the work than what we just passed with the beautification. It's just like we're just doing, we're going to come, anybody can speak on it. Excuse me, anybody can come and listen, but we're just moving it to ordinance to work on it.
It's not necessary to have a formally noticed public hearing at a set time. Members could come before this meeting, as they do now, members of the public, to speak on an item if they wish.
so through you, Mr. Chairman, so if
Go ahead.
the public wanted to offer their opinions or suggestions, because this is posted online of what's going to the Ordinance Committee, how would you suggest then that we would receive their feedback so that we could discuss it during the actual ordinance meeting?
Just through ordinary public comment.
Just, okay.
As you do now.
So we don't have to, you're saying we don't have to take their comments and then cite them during the actual ordinance meeting? I'm not asking anything to not be in compliant with the state statute. I'm just trying to give an opportunity for the public to comment or give their feedback to us for the Fair Rent Commission.
If they have comment, they could submit it to the council chair, and then she can circulate that to the committee, certainly, and you could discuss that.
Mr. Town Attorney, isn't there a public forum before the ordinance meeting?
Correct.
So they can do it there?
If they want to, or they could, are you suggesting submitting things in writing or just coming and speaking?
If they were to come and speak
Sure.
in person,
Just like they do now,
they
they
could
could come-
possibly
right.
submit in writing anyways. Thank you. So that's clear. The way that it was discussed a few minutes ago was that there would be no public hearing, and that's why I'm asking my question.
Well, no public hearing in the sense
Is
that the
different
public
than
hearing
public
of formal
comment.
proceeding is
Thank
different
you.
than public comment. Sure.
Thank you for clarifying. There was a gentleman, I don't know if everyone was here before during public comment, who came and gave praise to our body for actually beginning the process to implement this here in town. So if anybody else wants to come, now it's clear to anyone listening that they can come to public comment for the ordinance committee. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this?
Chris,
Mr. Can.
is there a public question presentation period prior to ordinance?
Ms. Dancher, do we have it as a public part on the agenda? And I'm referring to you because you're the ordinance chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as part of our regular ordinance meeting, there will be a public forum.
There you go. Any other discussion on this? No? Okay. We'll send it to ordinance. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Madam Mayor.
Mr. Chair, to the council, the Housing Partnership has been very involved, obviously, in housing issues for the town for a year and a half, and they are also having this as an item of topic on their agenda, so we can get some feedback from them.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 6.1.4. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Dancho.
Motion to approve item 6.1.4, an ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for the town of Stratford for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, and appropriating the sum of $254,271,128 in accordance herewith. Where's the list? Hold on. And that the first reading of the ordinance be and is hereby dispensed with, as copies thereof have been previously furnished to each member of the town council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referred to the ordinance committee for a public hearing.
Okay. Motion to be made by Councilwoman Dancho. Excuse me. We have a second by Councilman O'Brien. Any discussion on this? We'll, for the public, for those of you who are new, this is procedural. We move to ordinance, and then the ordinance committee will put together a series of public workshops like we do every year, which will mostly be held right in this room. So those dates are being worked on as we speak through the CAO's office and to coordinating with department heads. So as we get those, we'll get them out to everybody and come and listen. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 6.1.5. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Dancho.
Motion to approve item 6.1.5, an ordinance levying a tax rate. Should I do these separate, A and B?
No, they can be combined.
They can be combining item A of 40.20 mils on the dollar of the grand list of taxable property in the town of Stratford, Connecticut on the first day of October 2022, and B of 32.46 mils on the dollar per state statute section 12-71E on the grand list of taxable motor vehicle property in the town of Stratford, Connecticut on the first day of October 2022, and that the first reading of the above ordinance be and is hereby dispensed with, as copies thereof have been previously furnished to each member of the town council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referred to the ordinance committee for a public hearing.
Motion has been made by Councilwoman Dancho. Do I have a second to the motion? I have a second by Councilman Connor. Discussion. Same comment as before from me. We'll talk about it in ordinance. Okay. Sounds good. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item under resolutions, item 6.2.1. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Sutton.
I'd like to move resolution, item 6.2.1, resolution regarding a National Institute of Health, Substance Abuse, and Mental Health Service Administration grant to support a 2023 Sober Truth on Preventing Stop Underage Drinking Act grant in partnership with the Stratford Partnership for Youth and Families.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilwoman Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second, Mr. O'Brien. I heard him first again. Seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion on this item? No. Thank you again for another grant, to all the hard work you guys continue to do for us. We appreciate it. Okay. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 6.2.2. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Sutton.
I'd like to move item 6.2.2, a resolution regarding a grant request to the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection's DEEP Recreational Trails Program, supporting a townwide recreational trails open space study, including a physical survey of Roosevelt Forest.
Okay. Motion's been made by Councilwoman Sutton. Do I have a second to the
I'll
motion?
second.
Ms. Rice, okay. A second. Any discussion on this? Great grant. Any conversation?
For you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Shake, sorry.
Thank you. I just want to make a general comment that I'm glad that the town is pursuing at least one avenue for an open space grant, as we've had lively discussions in the past, and I'm glad that it's hopefully and will be applied to Roosevelt Forest we can preserve. So thank you for everyone that did their job, due diligence, in helping to find this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's we continue to get a lot of work done on open space in this town, and it's important, so we appreciate the administration on that. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be under section 7. Yep. New business, going to be item 7.1. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Poisson.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7.1, town bid number 2023-028, police lobby renovation, be awarded to RFJ Associates LLC of Trumbull in the amount of $346,000.
Motion's been made by Councilman Poisson. Do I have a second to the motion? Seconded by Council. Second by Mr. O'Brien. Does he have to mention the authorization for the mayor to enter in, Mr. Town Attorney?
No, because the full resolution is written there under the item as he moves.
So the motion's good as
the record.
stated. Okay. Second's been made by Councilman O'Brien. Do we have a second? Excuse me. Do we have any discussion on the item? Notes were provided in the. Yeah, Mr. Can, go ahead.
This project was likely included in our capital improvement plan. Do we know what year, or can we verify it was?
You want me to get Mr. Timniak?
It's for this year.
Any other questions on this one? Discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 7.2. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. O'Brien.
I move 7.2, referred by the Parks and Recreation Committee with a favorable recommendation that an increase of the Recreation Department playground fees from $75 to $150 for the 6-week session, and the sports camp fees from $75 to $100 per week be and is hereby approved.
Okay. Motion's been made by Councilman O'Brien. Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
A second by Councilwoman Sutton. Discussion. Mr. Timniak, if I could just have you just come up to the microphone, just give a quick synopsis of this, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. Camp fee increase this year is it's based on a couple things, but the main priority why it's going up is we were having a lot of no-shows at $75. It's actually for a 7-week program too, so raising it from $75 to $150 still allows you to be at $4.25 a day, which is very, very good. So it's very competitive with everything else. What was going on at $75? We were having a lot of people sign up for the camp. And then it's a hedge, right? Like if I don't get in this camp, or I want a babysitter, or I want like somebody, I want to send the kid for one day. Well, you have a lot of vacancies, and you have a lot of camp counselors at a higher rate this year because of the minimum wage. So we felt like increasing the fees was going to offset, one, parents using it as a hedge for their summer camp program, and two, offsetting some of the fees we have for increased camp costs. That is the rationale of why this was put in front of you today.
Okay. So I'll open up to any questions to Mr.
Through you,
Timniak.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Shea, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Timniak, since you're up here, you can probably best answer some of my questions. So do you have any of the data over the last several years where children have been registered for these camps, whether it's the sports camp or the playground camp, where they're not showing up? I have a really big problem with increasing the rates for families for something that many do utilize or they want to utilize here in town. I live right up the street from Longbrook Park, so I can tell you when I get up and go to work that park is filled with children. When I come home, it is filled with children and camp counselors. So I'd really like to know why there's hard data for doubling the cost for the playground, that particular camp, before we get into the sports one.
Okay, so there's definitely hard data across the board.
It would be great if that
Yeah.
could be shared with us
Sure.
in our ponies before we have to vote on something like this
Okay.
that directly impacts our residents.
If you,
Okay.
they're going to speak to it
Yeah.
and walk you
So,
through it.
I can get some help from the rec director here. give
Ms.
him some
Nora,
of
if
the-
you'd like to join
give him
Mr.
some of the
Timniak
data.
up here.
I mean, still at $4 a day, it's not like it's been marketed out of the neighborhood price. We also made sure to include all scholarships still available in the past to make sure that every family was available. We are doing our best to try to accommodate every kid who needs to have a spot open. What we're trying to really avoid is parents who sign up for the program and don't actually use it. And it's two ways to look at it. One, you could go ahead and you can continue to keep it at $75, and you're just going to have more and more of the same thing. You're not really going to address the problem. Two, you could go ahead and you could offer like three-week programs, so you could charge a little bit each week, and then parents only sign up for that week. But the low amount for a summer camp, especially compared to Sterling House and YMCA, still falls way under that number at $150 for a 7-week program. Obviously we can get into the math of what a counselor costs now, and we haven't updated that in a while. But if you want to go over counselor and camp.
The main reason for the increase is minimum wage has gone from, I started in the rec department 5 years ago, minimum wage was $10. It's now $15. It goes up on June 1st. $15 for each counselor on a playground. And as you said, you live by Longbrook Park. There's lots of children down there. This program requires a number of counselors, well more than we've had in the past. So $15 an hour for a counselor, plus I have to have a supervisor on that playground. Usually we have a college student. Those fees also have to increase. I can't pay a supervisor the same rate as I would pay someone brand new, 16 years old out of high school. Supervisor has a lot of responsibilities. There's 80 kids on a playground on any day, and that's a lot of responsibility for people. I've had to put more counselors on playgrounds. And to speak to Chris's point, yes, we do have families that sign up just to sign up, and they'll send their child for a week. But we also have had a lot more need over the past few years, whereas normally we would have 110 people sign up for Longbrook Park and 50 would show up. Last year we had 80 on a regular basis showing up. So where I used to be able to put 4 counselors and 1 supervisor, I now have to put at least 7 counselors and a supervisor, because we try to do a 1-to-10 ratio for the children. So the fees, it's just the increase in cost to my staff is quite large. The town does a wonderful job in supplementing the playground fee for a lot of people. So those people who need an 8-to-3 camp all day, $150 for the entire summer, I think is great. I also offer numerous scholarships to families who cannot afford the $150. I do a sliding scale. Some people don't pay anything. These families come to me through phone calls. I get them through Stratford Police Activities League. Sometimes Sterling House will call me and say, I have a family, we're full, they need a scholarship, can you help them? We help anybody who asks. They fill out a simple form. And so those families that can't afford $150 for the summer, they are being helped.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I can ask a follow-up question. So with the rate being $75 in the past up until now, of it being $75 of a percentage, how many families were asking for financial assistance when it was $75?
I would say we have about 800 people sign up, 800 families sign up for this camp. I probably get about 20 to 25 people ask for some form of a scholarship. And we honor that. And this rate hasn't been increased, I think, in like 4 years. And we've had minimum wage increases throughout those times, and this is my first time asking in 4 years.
May I respond?
Last question, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. Just more of a general comment then. You know, I'm glad that the minimum wage has increased so that, you know, we have a lot of young people here in town who they need to have structure and they want to participate in our community. And then they're coming back from college, all the reasons. And it's important for them to spend their time with an activity where they're working and gaining skills, especially childcare. Childcare, we hear it every single year when we come up into budget discussions as a major issue for working families here in this town. We are a blue-collar town, we're not a white-collar town, so parents and families having access to affordable child camp, I think is important if that's an opportunity so that the kids get outside. We heard from Mayor Hoydick.
Do you have a question, Caitlin?
I said it was more of a statement.
If you can wrap it up, we'll just keep going.
With the budget that we have been given to review and then it goes to ordinance, is that because of inflation, things are more expensive. So if there's any opportunity for us as the town to readjust, we've known that the minimum wage was going to be going up for how many years, to plan and then to potentially ask for additional supplemental funding. I plan to vote no on this because I can't, in good faith, turn around and speak to my constituents who are going to be asking me why we are going to be voting to increase their child care costs and child camp opportunities.
Thank you, Caitlin. So just so everyone's can put this to simple napkin math, you have 7 weeks paying $4.20 a day, up from $2.20 per day for somebody else to look after your child from 8 to 3, okay? With free lunch. So I'm not going to get into semantics of, you know, cost of living. It's gone up for every single person. I don't care what your income level is in the state of Connecticut, let alone the country. To go up $2 for the first time in 4 years, also when minimum wage has been affecting the same people taking care of those kids, I do plan to vote yes for it because it's the reality of what we need to continue to pay good quality services in this town. Does anybody else have a comment they'd like to add before we move on? Please.
Quick
Mr. Connor.
comment. As someone who's probably raised more kids than anybody here, maybe even collectively, I'm just going to make a statement. It's a good deal for the summer. For those who don't know, I have 5 kids, raised 3 grandkids, 8. So if you've got more than 8, God bless you. But seriously, I think exactly what Mr. Pia just said. What's the alternative? The alternative is a lot more if you can even find it, right? Okay.
Any other
I'll
councils?
be voting for yes for it.
Any other
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on. We're going to go in order. Excuse me, we're going to do this orderly. So I saw Ms. Sutton next. Thank you. I'll give everyone a chance to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a parent of 2 children in this community, I wanted to say thank you because they took part in these camps for many years. I also have experience with the registration process, and I can tell you right now that it is a frenzy at best for these spots that are available in these different camps. And I've known a lot of families, that myself sometimes included, that got that spot and then didn't need it throughout the season and took a spot from a child that desperately did need to take advantage of this program. It is not a true summer camp in the fashion where you get there at 8 and leave at 3. It is at a drop-in type situation, so it's even more convenient for those people that are in need. I do support the idea that it was originally, I think when I moved here, like $35 or something. I mean, it doesn't even, it pales in comparison as to a cost of a weekly program if you were to, go through another. Not to mention they've added the free lunch. So I think that the $150 is more than fair for the value of what they're receiving. I also think that it will help turn away those frenzied people that are just looking for the occasional drop-in, and maybe that wouldn't be something that could benefit them as much as it could for somebody in need. So I do appreciate the program very much, and I think it's grown in many ways. These counselors are not just sitting there and babysitting. They are creating programs and keeping these kids engaged. So thank you very much.
Any other counselors who have not spoken yet who would like the opportunity? Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, Amy. You mentioned 800 is the current capacity. If you had the staffing, could it be larger?
Yes, it'd definitely be larger if I had the staffing, but again, that would increase my budget because I'd have to pay for the staff.
So what comes first, the budget? Does the budget set the limit on how many kids you can have in?
Essentially, yes. I only get a certain amount of money from my budget. I have to pay my staff for these programs that we run. We run a free after-school program at Rec, which is 100% free, which I pay my staff to be there. And this summer camp, based on what I get from them, it depends on how many I can take. So yes.
Is there a waiting list?
Always.
Always.
Yes, always a waiting list, but I will assure you, and again, Ms. Shake, anyone who calls me and says that this is a need for them and their family, we give scholarships. We take care of any family that is in need. We don't let a family that can't afford it not be a part of it. For any program that I run, anything across the board.
Any other counselors who have, sorry, Greg, were you?
No, I was just going to ask Amy if she, let's say, quantifies the scholarships year over year, or whether it comes from you or from a third party.
Majority of the scholarships are from us. I do have some very nice people who call us and will say, hey, I have some extra money. Do you need us to sponsor a child? You know, sometimes if it's a large amount and, you know, we'll say, sure, we hold on to it. We have a family that wants to do something special. We can do that. But for me to do the playground camp, because it is subsidized by the town, I'm not going to take money from someone when the money is already subsidized by the town. So that money that people want to donate, we put towards other things.
Any other counselors? Mr. O'Brien.
As you know, I'm the oldest member of this council. I'm the second. And I attended the playground way back last century. And to pay $150 to me is so reasonable. And as camp director for many years at Sterling House, we hated to raise the fees every year, but we had to. And we always compared it to what it would cost for a babysitter. And what does a babysitter charge these days? So,
50. Any other counselors who have not spoken yet on the, Ms. Rice?
I just wanted to say that everyone keeps remarking about the cost of daycare and that it's only for $4 extra, you know, a day. But if you have multiple children and you aren't making the wages, that's a lot. And I don't want to. I think we would be remiss if we don't discuss it, that this can be a hardship on families, that it's not just for $4 for everyone, or neither is it just $150. There are many families suffering, seriously suffering financially, and I just wanted to stop and talk about that.
Hold on, Mr. Timniak. Mr. Poisson, did you have a question? I'm going to wrap up now, but
It'd probably be better if Chris responded to that, and then I'll finish.
Yeah, Councilwoman Rice, I started by saying this is more about the planning side of things and trying to figure out how to disincentivize all the no-shows so that we know exactly how many counselors we need at each camp and attendance is more regular versus parents just taking, you know, $75 last year versus $150 this year. Yes, we debated, and I know the rec committee also debated multiple kids. Like, it is more expensive. And we know that we have the scholarship there to catch the people who can't afford to do it. We don't want to come close to limiting or scaring anybody away. What we want to make sure is that the parents recognize, hey, this isn't an opportunity to sign up to send your kid and take a spot away and have your child go there for 7 days out of the summer, you know, or 5 days out of the summer, or, you know, once that spot's gone, you have to basically plan that he may show up at any day, at any time. So we could have extra counselors in one spot and not enough in another. So realigning the costs, and yes, of course, minimum wage, insurance, everything, we all know that goes up. That I wanted to really stress that that was not the main reason why this is in front of you. The main reason why is like it has to get under control, that this isn't just like an insurance option, that there is a wait list. So if you are sincere about sending your kid to this playground camp all summer, we want that same commitment, and not just because it's an easy $75.
Okay.
For you, Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Oh, hold on. You've had a good chance to speak. I'm going to allow Mr. Poisson. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
it was just really a point that the motion was for the price for a 6-week session, but it's been noted in discussion it's a 7-week session. So like in the minutes, it should probably say 7 minutes, so it's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Poisson. That's accurate, Ms. Nora, right?
7 weeks. Yes.
Okay, so if we can just note that, Ms. Paquette. Thank you, Mr. Poisson. Any other, Lisette, did you, yes, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Please excuse my voice, I've been losing it. I do want to reiterate a little bit. I understand everyone has different opinion and opposing to this, but I've worked in childcare and as administrator as well, and I have to say that what they are discussing is a valid point. We understand that, excuse me, the inflation is high with childcare. I have 2 children of mine that I pay skyrocket for just the daycare alone. I understand. But I'm not here to oppose the situation. But what I do agree is that at least they do have funding for the programs with moms or dads or families that are in need, that are low-income based families, which I know that is a valid, real thing. And it's real. The only thing is that I know individuals don't understand is that with the inflation that is going high, yes, everyone thinks that this is coming up and, you know, families can't afford that, because from 75 to 150, I would be like, if I didn't know anything about childcare, I'd be like, holy crap, that is, you know, expensive. But I think everyone should trust the process. They are on the right path, and she is legitimately on a lower end of this. So I would appreciate that everyone could respect that, please. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to...
One more question.
Hold on,
Mr.
Ms. Shake. Hold on. Everyone had ample opportunity, including you. I'm going to end it with this, so we're going to vote on this, please. So I just want to thank Amy and her department, because what they do, not only with this program, in coordination with many individuals around town who are gracious enough to help firsthand, including the PAL, the Police Athletic League, and the symmetry between those organizations is amazing, and that never gets credit in the paper. But there's a lot of good people in this town that work for the town that really go above and beyond their paycheck to help families and kids. So I want it known and said, because that never makes the public eye. So with that, we're going to vote on this. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
1 opposed. Motion passes 9-1. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 7.3. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. O'Brien.
I move 7.3 to consider and act upon the favorable recommendation of the Planning Commission for the deeding of lot number 4 as open space to the town of Stratford and relocation of existing trails on the proposed subdivision map of 500 Peters Lane property pursuant to the 824 review.
Okay, motion.
Mr. Chairman, the motion.
Second.
I'm sorry, hold on.
The motion could properly also include to accept the deed of lot number 4 as open space, lot number 4 on 500 Peters Lane, proposed subdivision map as open space to the town of Stratford, and relocation of existing trails on the proposed subdivision map.
So moved.
Okay. I saw a second by, was it Mr. Connor or Ms. Sutton?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Sutton. Sorry.
He backed up.
Ms. Sutton. Discussion on this. Any discussion? Mr. Can.
Thank you, Chris. Just a tax question. Lot number 4, what was its property tax liability last year?
I have no idea. Madam Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Counselor, I believe that value of the lot, as it was predominantly wet, was a wetland, was not of a high value, but we will confirm that, Council Clerk, and get you that information.
Any other discussion on this item? Go ahead, Greg.
Has the 824 review been completed yet?
Yes, that's through you, Council
Go ahead, Madam
Chair.
Chair.
Councilor Can, it's been voted on by planning and referred back to the council. Yes. There's another one that you're going to refer back to planning next.
Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item is going to be item 7.4. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Mr.
to,
Connor.
I move that the matter involving 795 James Farm Road referred to the Planning Commission for Connecticut General Statutes 824 referral.
Motion been made by Councilman Connor. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Francesi. Any discussion on this? Again, as the mayor just stated, this is us sending this to planning for the 824. No other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 7.5. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Sutton.
I move that the amendment to the lease between the Town of Stratford Veterans Museum Incorporated be and is hereby approved, and that the mayor, Laura R. Hoydick, or her designee, is hereby authorized and empowered to execute and deliver such lease amendment in the name of and on behalf of the Town of Stratford.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilwoman Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Rice. Any discussion on this? This is included for everybody.
Mr.
O'Brien.
Chairman, I'd like to point out that, well, first of all, the town's been very supportive in helping us with the museum, but a 10-year lease is required for a $100,000 grant that we have put in for to improve the property with new windows, insulation, painting, a new roof, much needed work. So this 10-year lease was required as part of the grant through the Connecticut Humanities.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien, for that insight. Any other further discussion on this? Mr. Can.
Through you, Chris.
Go ahead.
Has the Veterans Museum Commission Committee, if you will, considered any other amendments to its lease with the town of Stratford? Is this an opportunity to make any other revisions?
Well, at one point, we thought we'd have to move to a bigger location, but with these improvements, we feel we can stay there, as modern technology will help us digitize, hopefully, because we're really outgrowing the space, but we can work around that through the modern technology.
So nothing else at this time, as we sit here now. Okay.
Should we, for the record, state what the new termination date would be? Or is that?
It's in the lease that was provided to you.
The new termination date would
It's in the pony.
expire, the initial term expires March 8, 2025. This is a 10-year extension, so it would terminate on March 7, 2035, and the current rent of $1 a year remains throughout the next, this 10-year extension.
Thank you.
All the other terms of the lease in effect, the terms that are currently in effect remain in effect.
Just to you, Mr.
Ms. Rice.
Chair. Quick question for you, Mr. O'Brien. If the Veterans Museum determined that the space was entirely too small and could not and needed to move, would the town let them out of the leases? That's something.
Either party has a 60-day notice to terminate the lease.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is item 7.6, discussion of term limits on the town. So to give everyone a little backstory on this, so here's, it was brought to my attention by 3 members of the current Board of Education. They wrote us a letter a couple months back asking us to have conversation about extending the term limits for the Board of Education. So in the preceding the last 6-7 weeks, that has come up. It has been requested of me by a couple counselors up here as well to begin that conversation and that dialogue. So I felt that it was prudent to put it on the agenda in the way that we did tonight. The purpose of tonight is to have a discussion about this. I would like the 10 counselors if they would like to weigh in to give their opinions on this, like to hear it. It's, to be very upfront and honest with you, there are a lot of people who like term limits in this country. There's a lot of people who don't. And it is, I'll tell you right now, it is not a Democrat-Republican thing. That's my honest read and opinion on this. So, you know, the hearing tonight, and I found out about the referendum numbers about 2 weeks ago, that there have been 3. I didn't even know that. Those are interesting. But again, the purpose of tonight in a orderly discussion is for counselors, if they want to give their opinion on it, and we'll determine how we want to move forward. So I will open it up to the floor. If you want to talk, I'm going to let you talk, and then I want to go around to everybody else, but I'll open it up.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Connor.
I'm jumping in because other than Mr. Poisson, no one else, including the mayor, she was a bystander, and her husband was part of the process, went through a referendum. And I'm going to tell you, we got on, this is 2015, we got on the wrong side of it. The party did, the mayor did, and we ended up with egg in our face because we forgot one people. And you know who it is? It's the people. We forgot them. We were trying to bypass and pass through the commission of the WPCA without going to the people. And what happened is we got slaughtered. So I'm going to tell everyone here, I'm never going to vote to move this unless it goes to referendum. And the reason why it goes to referendum, and Ms. Palermo brought it up, the fact it's been 3 times, it's been a little bit a few years to Ms. The DTC chair's point, it's only been 5 years, and the scars are still there. If you get on the wrong side of the people, and you could see it tonight, the people were hostile, and this is a small group. If you don't go to referendum, you're going to go wrong. So I'm telling you, everybody here, you can do what you want, because my vote's the only one that I'm going to vote for. But you need to be aware, this is not a good thing, to just randomly, by some letter, think you're going to have the council jump on it. It's not good. And by the way, as a point of order, Ms. Palermo and Lou DeCilio probably couldn't agree on the same time, and yet tonight they were the best of friends. So thank you, Ms. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any other counselors who would like to weigh in on this? No, just anybody. I'm just asking for. It seems like this. Everyone wanted to talk about this, so let's talk about it.
Mr. Chair, since I've been a part of following along with Stratford politics and local government, if you will, this conversation about the term limits and specifically referencing the Board of Ed has come up on, you know, personal levels as well with some of the relationships that I have with people that are even here today. The bottom line is, and I know I've said this in public forum before, but regardless of my personal beliefs and my personal decision on this, I don't believe it would be doing my constituents a service to make that decision on their behalf. I think I need to put my personal beliefs to the side and ask my constituents and the residents through a referendum, or because I don't feel that we have a full representation of how our residents feel on this subject matter just by the simple conversations we've had in the last few weeks. So that's how I'll be basing my vote.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sun. Anybody else? No one else wants to talk? Mr. Can.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad you mentioned it's a bipartisan topic. In the 16 years or so that I've been associated with the Board of Ed in some limited capacities, of course, I've not heard a single member of the Board of Ed Finance Committee, Curriculum Committee, et cetera, support the current term limit. Everyone from Ben Proto, Gavin Forrester, Jim Feehan, I could name a dozen other members of the Republican Party, per se, they've all lamented the fact it has nothing to do with difficulty to learn, although we've maybe had some BOE members who chose not to really learn. But whenever we have an opportunity for people to be engaged and to bring a professional, experienced voice, it should be supported. I don't know what it takes, so I know, it's really unfortunate that one person will make it as a Democrat issue when the letter was written by two non-affiliated voters. It's very unfortunate that we have high visible members of the Republican Party supporting what has been proposed, and then have an individual negate all of that historical testimony. I'd like to ask through the chair, what would it take for a referendum on this issue?
So I don't know the legalities of that, Greg. Mr. Town Attorney, if you just want to answer that question to Mr. Can specifically, as I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, we've started to look at this issue. You know, there's of course in the charter initiatives, ordinance process, and referenda process. So we're looking at those three to come up with alternatives as to the path forward that you can take in this. Whether you as the council can send this to referendum, what votes are required, whether you clearly can do it by ordinance, and then there's the referendum process after. So we're going to have for the next meeting those paths for you of how you can proceed.
So
options.
It's right today. We've not discounted the council's ability to quote order a referendum on a particular issue.
We've not discounted anything yet. We're looking at all those avenues and can report further as to which ones are viable and you could take in this scenario.
Thank you.
Any other counselor who has not spoken yet would like to?
Just really
Ms. Rice.
quickly, would like it to say, I find it remarkable that we are the only town, or one of the only towns in all of Connecticut that are only restricted to one term, and that makes me wonder why is everyone else allowing it and we are not? It just seems would appear that there are more benefits, and one of them, as spoken on earlier, is the wealth of knowledge that they get just goes away, and I think that it's a disservice if we don't consider the second term. And allow that to come forward. Just going to wanted to speak on
Thank you,
that.
Ms. Rice. Any other counselors who have not spoken who would like the opportunity?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Shake.
Thank you. You know, my part of my commentary on this issue is threefold. We all received the email or letter from the Board of Ed members requesting and giving the reasons as to why they would like to see a change in their terms to no more than 2. For us, as town council, we get to sit here and do this 3 terms in a row. There's other boards, elected, excuse me?
Yeah, if you're right.
2 terms, we get to run 3 times in a row, and then we sit out, and then you get to run again if you want to for town council. This was presented, I thought, in a bipartisan manner. I watched the Board of Ed meeting when the Finance Committee appointed people, including those that sit on the other side of the aisle, from me, got up and gave their reasoning as to why they do think that it is a good idea for Board of Ed members to be able to serve in capacity of 2 terms, and then they would sit out, and then as you know, the gentleman that was here, and honestly, I'm perplexed as to who he was in his representation of addressing the town council. Was he the RTC elected chairman? Was he our Republican registrar of voters? In his comments to us collectively, and to the Board of Ed members, whether they agree or disagree, on why they think that there should be a change to how they can serve in their capacity. I issued my own email after receiving the email from the Board of Ed members and staying in line with what we as counselors are and are not allowed to do. My email did not include everyone here. It went to Mr. Pia, it went to Ms. Dancho as chair of ordinance, I believe Mr. Connor, and to the town lawyers, inquiring if it could be an amendment change to the current ordinance language that I had presented in the email. Is that an option? Just to know what our options are, and did not receive a full answer. And before we were able to come and sit down for a regular meeting, briefly spoke, and they commented on it could be a referendum, it could be an ordinance change, but you know, I respect hearing, particularly Mr. Connor, who's been sitting here the longest as a town councilor, what has happened in the past and where people may or may not stand. I do think that at no point in time should any of us, whether we are sitting here as counselors or any other elected official here in this town, be commenting with demeaning or derogatory comments of someone's education level, what their capacity is, referring to the people who had taken the time to try and work this through, that they were pompous. I just completely disagree with that, and I think that it hinders the work that we collectively here as the council and with the mayor's office are trying to do to serve everyone here in this town. The three women that wrote that letter to all of us are very highly educated, amazing public servants who, just like us, are volunteering and dedicating their time to try and do what they think is best in their capacity of advocating for the children here in this town who are trying to have a good experience in our public schools and support our teachers and staff. So if at this juncture, through the town lawyers, what I'm hearing is that we have several options, I hope that we can not only have the options ready and available to us, but whatever that information is also sent to us in our town pony so that we can review it before we come here to the next meeting.
So, yeah, we're gonna, before I give everyone the chance to speak, we're gonna do a summary of the next steps, so everyone's clear, believe in that. Ms. Shake, to your point, whether you, and this is my belief in any of this, and I've been sitting up here for almost 6 years now, whether I agree or disagree with anybody talking for 3 minutes at that podium is irrelevant in my opinion. There's been plenty of people over the years who have said things there that I vehemently disagree with. They have a right to speak. They have a right to speak. And if you don't like that, that's fine, but that's a beautiful thing that we have in this country. So I hear both sides of every issue, and that's the way it is, but every person, just because we may agree or disagree with them, doesn't make anybody wrong. So we're keeping it to this. Does anybody else, before I kind of do a wrap-up and summary, want to just give their 2 cents who has not? I think everyone's weighed in that wanted to, right? Okay, so, excuse me, what I'm going to recommend we do, Mr. Town Attorney, if you can continue to, I know you started looking into this about a week ago, if you can continue to do that so we can have another further discussion at the next council meeting. I'm also going to ask the Majority Leader, Mr. Connor, and Minority Leader, Mr. Cant, to have a conversation leading
Point of
up
order,
to
Mr. Chairman, I'm the Minority Leader.
Oh, you're the Minority Leader?
Thank you so much.
No problem. So, I wasn't aware, no problem. But Mr. Connor, if you can have a conversation with the Minority Leader, Ms. Shake, leading up to the next council meeting so that we're in discussion, and when we get here, we can have further clarity as to where we're going with this. And I'm just going to say one comment too. I'm not opposed to having this conversation, hence why we're sitting here and doing this tonight, but if we're going to identify, and I'm just saying this in very broad context, if we're going to identify one specific elected board in this town, okay, we have to be open, I think, open to the idea of looking at every single one of them. Okay, in full honesty and transparency. We can't just cherry pick a specific seat. This is my personal opinion. And we're in a position that our people elected us to do. And this is very important here. But I think that this body, my opinion, should look at everything. If we go down this path, we look at everything. And I think that's the right thing to do because, at the end of the day, if we wanted to, we can slap something on the agenda tomorrow because I decide I want to run for another term, right, at the end of my 6 years. So, and I think it is what it is, the way it is. None of us were here that put it in force, but I just think I asked the body, and here's my ask, is that we be open to everything in this conversation. So I'm going to end it with that. Thank you. We'll talk next month, and I appreciate the discussion on this. Okay? Next item on the agenda is going to be under appointments. Item 7.7.1, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Poisson.
I'd like to move that it be resolved that Rich Fredette of Ferry Court be and is hereby reappointed as an alternate on the Zoning Commission with a term that expires January 1st, 2026.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilman Poisson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sutton. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 10-0. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 7.8.1. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. O'Brien.
I move that the mayor's appointment of Greg Burns to the Short Beach Park Commission be and is hereby confirmed.
Motion has been made by Mr. O'Brien. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Dancho. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion, no one against. Motion passes 10-0. Mr. Poisson?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, sir. And do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Sutton on the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.